Do these, the effect of those dimensions, does that stack? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Hey, welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time to cover the abilities of America Chavez. We've had these for a while. I have really studied them, asked a lot of questions, and I'm pumped up to bring them to you. And there's a couple of things here that upon reading it do not stand out immediately, but I've asked some questions, got some answers. I think you're gonna like what you hear. So let's dive into this. They start off letting us know that she is a mystic, kind of giving a little bit of background on her. She's a very cool champion from the comics and some shows. I originally thought she was going to be cosmic. I know a lot of you reached out to me, said, dude, she might be mystic. You should keep that in mind, getting her powers from the Demiurge. It does make sense, and I think they're kind of explaining that a little bit here. But you're gonna see, I don't think she's playing like what we traditionally think of mystics. Okay, so let's get into that. And then they're telling us here a little bit of description, and I think the description is very well written. Some hints and tricks and things, all right, but they're really pointing out some of the ways to play her and how she's going to work out. But she's definitely a powerhouse brawler. This really goes to the character and champion that we've gotten to know. Her strengths are from buffs, specialized in back-to-back heavy-hitting combos. She's going to be launching special attacks during her heavy attack. There's a wasp type thing there. You're going to really enjoy that. She opens parallel dimensions, which is a big part of her gameplay. And this is going to, they just say improves her base stats. This is going to massively improve her base stats, right? So let's dive into it. What are we talking about here? As you can see, I have highlighted the things I thought were by far the most important parts to make sure we talked about in this video, and that I know I'm going to be diving into as soon as I can get access to this champion on the test server. All right. So each hit of her heavy attack switches the dormant dimension in order they appear below. I know there's some other champions that kind of have this sort of ability. I believe it's Jubilee. I am thinking this more of like switching the phases or something like that, kind of like with Clairvoyant. She's not like Clairvoyant, but you can switch them and what you want to be happening, right? Launching a special attack during a heavy attack, or if the heavy attack ends for any reasons. That is incredibly important, because if you let the heavy attack end on its own, you just kind of let it run its course like you do on many heavy attacks, you don't cancel it, it's going to default to that negative zone. And we'll get to that when we talk about the negative zone. But if you cancel it out early, you can activate this Utopian Parallel, which will reduce the opponent's fury, armor up, precision, cruelty buff by 70%. And you're like, that's pretty cool. All right, yeah, that works. You know, for when she's fighting champions that have those abilities, like that'd be great to reduce them by 70%. Like, okay. The Dark Dimension, deal 40% of the damage taken back as energy damage. Damage is capped. That one I'm not as pumped up on, but you're going to see there's a use for it in a way. I do think that might be a bit more defensive, and you definitely do not want her cycling through her SP1s, triggering all of these dimensions, and then throwing that SP2. Trust me, I just don't think that's a recipe for a good thing. And then this is the negative zone, right? This is the one that we really want to pay attention to, because this is the one that will naturally end. It's kind of, think of it like the default dimension that will be activated by the heavy attack. Reduces the opponent's ability power gain rate by 60%. Now keep in mind, that's the ability power gain rate, not from you hitting into them. Think about like Hyperion, Dragon Man, anyone with these really troublesome power gains that we end up going up against in wars and things like that. Matching dimensions suffer 20%. So if you trigger them multiple times, you're going to suffer a 20% duration for each stat. But that got me thinking. I thought it was an interesting thing for them to write in. It's obviously part of her kit, and it makes a lot of sense, right? Because you're triggering them for 30 seconds. And if you trigger another one of the same dimension, it's going to have a 20% less duration. Okay, that makes sense. But wait a minute. Do the effect of those dimensions, does that stack? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. And that's where I got pumped up. That's where I got pumped up, because my specific question was, does that mean I can actually invert the ability power gain of a champion just by landing 2 of these dark dimensions, or I'm sorry, of the negative zone? And the answer is yes, just by having 2 of them. So my understanding, you land 2 heavies, you let them run their course, you have now inverted the power gain rate. Because it'll be inverted, it'll be under 20%, right? So you're inverting it 120%. That's awesome. That is awesome. That is a big deal. And I think right there, you already have a use for her, which I'm pumped up about. And then we're going to cover the rest of this is how well do I think she might be used in matchups that aren't that, right? Okay, so we have got a niche already. We've got a use. What else can she do? Okay, so the developers note the only way America Chavez can activate Utopian Peril and Dark Dimension safely is by launching a special attack after the first or second hit of the heavy. What they're really telling us there is kind of what I said is the default is that that negative zone. I think the negative zone is one of her best uses from what I'm seeing, because that's something that you will want to quickly invert if you possibly can. That allows you to take advantage or take control of those fights typically. All right, America Chavez abilities. This is important. I've highlighted it. Dimensional energy infusion max 9. So for each unique dimension on her, right? And you saw that there was 3. So you can get a max of 3 for this dimensional energy infusion. And for each buff on the opponent. Think about how many champions in this game now have buffs and how many of them have a multitude of buffs. This does max out at 9. And there's a reason, because we've seen how many champions have buffs and things like that. You're going to increase your attack rating by 584. 584. That is a significant amount. I don't think you should think of her as that you're always going to have that multiplied by 9, but you and yourself in just a base fight against a champion that has absolutely no buffs are going to be able to increase this by about 1,800, but there will be more. Trust me, we'll get to it. The energy resistance, I think that's a nice to have. I'm not thinking that that's going to add up to enough to really make you take a fight that you otherwise would not have used her for. I don't see someone being like, oh, I need energy resistance, and with America Chavez, I can get 9 stacks of this, and now I'm going to bring her in instead of Guardian or something like that, right? Okay, this is another very, very cool part. Charge a heavy at heavy attacks. Charge a heavy attack after landing a non-combo ending hit. Basically, Wasp. Those of you familiar with Wasp, you're able to start your combos, go in, and land this heavy, which is really nice because as you saw, that is a way to start triggering your dimensions. That's very important. You can get that negative dimension going, which gets the inverted power, ability power gain. Also, as we know, this is another way to, in some ways, increase your combos and start getting those openings, start getting the flow of the fight going. So I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited about her having this ability. The developer's notes is usually good to point out. Start charging a heavy attack after the third light attack or first medium. They're basically telling you like easy ways to kind of get this going, get into it if you're not familiar with playing Wasp. America Chavez Special 1, the Power Stomp. Each unique parallel dimension creates a passive power gain effect, providing 40% of a bar of power. If you're familiar with me and my channel, you know I absolutely love champions that have power gain mechanics. Hyperion, Dragon Man. I love them because you are just gaining power that allows you to play patiently and allows you to find openings, and it's also allowing you to cycle your specials, which is going to be very important for America Chavez to maximize her power because they will help you trigger your dimensions, getting to what is clearly supposed to be the SP2 to finish off these champions. So, and you can see the developer's notes even saying, use this special attack to quickly activate multiple parallel dimensions. This should naturally push you towards your special 2. Because keep in mind, it's for each unique parallel dimension, meaning you will be able to get up to 3 of these, meaning that's 120% of a bar of power over 1.5 seconds. You can see how this is starting to build, right? Special 2 Stardust for the final hits, the 3 hits. She's going to open a portal, an additional dimension, just think of it that way, called the Big Bang, dealing a burst of energy damage equal to 50% of the hit damage. My sense is, I want to confirm it when playing her, the Special 2 is going to do significant damage if you line it up properly with these dimensions. Anything that's massive and then you're getting an extra 50% of it, that's a big deal. These hits gain a bonus effect based on the last dimension activated, Utopian Parallel, the Dark Dimension. So if this Special 2 is big, which I believe it's supposed to be based on the way she's written and the way she's being talked about, regenerating 12% of the hit damage could be a significant amount. So you have a champion that might, now I'm not talking about Wolverine, but this could be something similar to like a Clairvoyant or something like that, where you are getting to be able to more than just top yourself off. I want to see it in the gameplay, but I think you might have a champion here who's able to deal a nice chunk of damage through her SP2 and then heal back quite a bit of it. So let's see. I'm very, very excited to test that out. And then the negative zone, being able to throw an unblockable hit is obviously very nice, right? I mean, we bring Wasp with Ghost that we can do this. So I think we can see some uses for that, of course. Combo into this heavy attack, into the sack from heavy attack to gain the dimension bonus. So yeah, so you're heavy and you're going to throw into the special, and there you go. Now you've got these nice bonuses based on what you chose to trigger. Special 3, activate one of each parallel dimension. I want to play her to figure this out, because I was thinking you might throw a series of SP1s to build to that SP2, but I could see also a path for go to the SP3. You now have one of each parallel dimension triggered. SP1 to trigger the big passive power gain, get to your SP2, and potentially end the fight, right? Again, I'm assuming this SP2 is going to be big. If it just hits like a wet noodle, then, you know, this is all for naught, right? But the way she's being talked about, the way it's written, I think this SP2 is going to be doing some sizable damage. So that's how I'm feeling like the use of the SP3 is. And also, you know, with any Mystic champion, especially if you're running Mystic Dispersion, although I don't see a huge use for using this Mystic Dispersion with her, which some people will see as a real positive. You do sometimes get pushed to your SP3 on accident. So I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out some nice uses from it, and also trying to figure out, do you really have to go to your SP3 in order to trigger the various dimensions to then trigger the SP1? I think you don't, but we won't know until we play her for sure, of course. And then this is where this is nice. I think this is a really nice signature ability. If at least 3 unique dimensions are active, right? And so you're going to be wanting to trigger all 3 of them. It's going to be increasing your attack rating. It's going to be increasing all kinds of things. America Chavez becomes supercharged, granting the following bonuses: plus 50% dimensional energy infusion potency. Let's go back up to that so I can remind you of what that is. It's this up here, right? This is the one where for each of your dimensions, up to a max of 3, right? Because they have to be unique. Then plus the buffs on the champion. So it's maxed out at 9. But let's just say, like, again, I think she's going to kick butt on champions with buffs. I just think she is already. I think she's going to hit extremely hard, and she's going to be very usable. So I want to analyze this from the standpoint of your just generic fight. How much are you going to want to use her? Is she niche or is she usable all around? From just that alone, you are increasing the attack rating by 50%, the attack rating bonus. That's sizable. That's a big amount. Just from having 3 different dimensions triggered, which as we saw, you can just get to the SP3. That's a lot. That's a lot. That is not a nothing, and is significantly more than a nothing. If you're familiar with my channel, you know that's a phrase that gets said. And then launching the special 2 during a heavy attack provides plus 1 attack, a stack, whichever dimension was activated. I'm not as sure on that, because what I want to figure out, and here's the way is does that mean that you can go into your SP2 and then trigger the 3rd dimension through the SP2? Like if you go into the SP2 with 2 dimensions, can you then trigger that 3rd one through the SP2 and then have it count as you having thrown it with 3 unique dimensions? I think only through playing the game will we know for sure how that's going to work out, or playing her in the game. Okay, and then her synergy. So this is a unique synergy with Mojo and Longshot. America Chavez, the Utopian Parallel reduces unstoppable buffs by 50%. That's nice, because she obviously doesn't have really a way to control buffs. The way she works is the more buffs the opponent has, the stronger she gets. And that really does kind of fit with the champion you know from the comics, right? She's just going to get very strong, and then at some point she's going to land this massive, massive hit that will typically end the fight. So this seems like a very helpful synergy. Unstoppable is a thing. It's a pain in the butt. But I want to be balanced on this, right? And like if you're doing the Footloose node, that's not going to do anything to the evade. So I don't know. I think it's nice. It's not going to cause me to bring Mojo with her. I would probably Mojo because I like him. Out of this world, you can synergy with Hood and Ghost Rider. The Dark Dimension regenerates 30% of the damage dealt to the opponent by this dimension, and 25% resistance to degen damage for Hood and Ghost Rider. I'll test them. You know, when this comes into the game, I will, or into the test server, I will test that out. It's not highlighted for a reason. And then we got the Stay Positive with Annihilus. I like the names of these. America Chavez, each stack of the negative zone generates 1% of a bar of power. That's not a nothing. That's not a nothing. As we talked about, I think the negative zone is one that you're frequently going to be wanting to use because I think she is going to be that powerful in those sorts of matchups. So getting more power while you're going, allowing you to get through your specials more quickly, maybe get to the SB3 a little faster, get to the SB2, like, yeah, that's a good thing. And then the KO Queens, I think this one is her quote unquote best one as we're going into it, but I don't think any of these are need to haves. A unique synergy with She-Hulk and Captain Marvel, two champions I happen to really like. America Chavez, the Big Bang Dimension, has a 12% potency. Now, we went over the Big Bang Dimension. We'll go back to it here at the end when I do kind of like a closing thoughts. But getting that increase by 12% is a nice thing because I think she's going to be about that big damage. So it makes sense to me. And then female champions, heavy attacks on opponents that aren't stunned, have a 6. And just like, Tigra, anyone? Right? Think of that through. That she's the one who really hits for me on someone who's throwing their heavies, particularly when the defender is not stunned. That's a big part of her kit. And then as we're seeing with Hercules, right, they're trying to talk to us a little bit about maybe even intercepting with their heavy or parrying, and then really timing the end of the parry stun with our heavy. So this feels like a new thing that's being worked in. I already like She-Hulk, I already like Captain Marvel. You don't need to convince me to take them along in quests. So getting that Big Bang Dimension plus 12%, might be enough to push me over the edge with some rank ups or to bring them along when I otherwise wouldn't. So let's go ahead and take a look at this Big Bang Dimension, and then I'll give my kind of closing thoughts on this. Okay, so I just wanted to point this out that, again, remember, my sense is that this is about getting to that SB2 in a variety of ways with some various things set up, and then finishing the fight with this SB2, you know, depending, of course, on the health pool of your opponent. But if for the final 3 hits of this special attack, she's going to open this other portal that has the additional Big Bang Dimension, dealing a burst of energy damage equal to 50%. Having that increase by, I think, what it was at 12%, that's a nice thing, right? That's a nice thing. Again, I don't think any of her synergies, and I was kind of trying to say this, I don't think any of her synergies are something that you're like, you gotta have this to make her work, right? And then my kind of closing thoughts on her are, when I first saw it, I was a little bit disappointed. You know, she's a mystic, and I like my mystics very, I guess, maybe to fit a narrow format. They're traditional, like power gain, I like nullification, I like stagger, right? You just give me doom in a variety of forms. I really like Sorcerer Supreme, but I also do, and once I got over that initial thing of one, seeing that she was mystic, and then her abilities, I remembered how much I love playing Dragon Man. And so she's got this passive power gain. Now, I think the negative to it is that she just doesn't get it. You need to gain power to gain power. You need to get to that SP1 in order to gain power. She doesn't have like a debuff she can throw or something like that. So a node that doesn't allow you to gain power, she's not going to be passively gaining it anyways. That being said, I love champions that have power gains. It's just every fight in this game deals with power, every single fight. That's why I think mystics are probably very difficult to make. And when they have power gains like Hyperion, like, you can just control the fight in so many different ways. So the fact that she has it, I think, is a big plus. I think the passive stun after a combo, I think, is a really big deal. You can see that they do have a slightly decreased, the defender has slightly decreased power gain from that heavy, but I still think it's really going to allow you to elongate your combos a bit or do some more damage. It's going to allow you to, I think, to create some openings and to throw your specials in quite nicely. So I'm very excited about that. And then the idea of being able to invert power gain, ability power gain, that's massive. Those are some of the most difficult fights, right? And that's typically where you see someone decide they absolutely have to bring in someone who's going to reverse it, right, on the science side of things. And in Mystics, we were dealing with power locks with magic and things like that, right? So I'm very excited about that. And I think it's really going to come down to, how does this all actually work out in the game? How quickly can you get to that SB2? And how many things do you need to trigger before that SB2 is big enough to finish them off? I think she's clearly going to be usable against defenders who have a lot of buffs. But I think the key with her is when the defender doesn't have a lot of buffs. How big is that attack value? How big is that SB2 going to be? And how quickly can I access it? I'm excited that she's in the game. Very excited to test her out. Let me know what you're thinking. You think I missed something? Or if there's something I pointed out that you didn't really get on initial reading, I'd love to hear it. I'm pumped up to see her. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. I hope you either learned something, were entertained, or even better, a little bit of both. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.